Okay, Chapter 23, Video 2, Overhead Standards and its Variants. This is maybe the one area that students do struggle a little bit more on. And all you're doing is getting a predetermined overhead rate. So this is an acronym that's used, very standard. And so you're just getting an estimate on your total overhead costs. And this is going to be for the period, like a month or a year, typically would be on a year. And then you estimate, divided by your estimated activity, or whatever your divisor is. So this standard activity often is based on how many labor hours you think you're going to be using for that year. If you're a delivery service, maybe it's how many miles you think you will be driving for that year. If you have trucks or so forth, it could be even materials. So it will vary according to the business of what activity level you're going to base this overhead as a divisor into. So this will vary according to that activity. Still, you have to get an estimate of how much activity, whether it be how much electricity you're going to use, how many miles you're going to drive, how many hours of labor you're going to use, something, and then you're going to have to estimate your total overhead costs. And then you're going to divide this out, and this will be your overhead rate times the number of activity for that smaller period, like for the month and so forth. So setting overhead standards, it does contain an overhead rate, a fixed rate, and it also contains a variable rate. And it is a function of activity level to some determined level. So you're going to have a variable component, and you're also going to have a fixed component. But it still comes down to you have to estimate your year-end overhead costs, and then you can estimate your total activity as a divisor. And you can change during the year as things do, as you should, to make it more accurate. So here they're using hours worked as an example, and their costs are going to be this much, and they're just going to divide it out, and they're going to multiply 2.14 cents per hour. And if they're going to use 80 hours that week or that month, then you would multiply that out to get your overhead estimate, as all they're really doing here. And then you're going to have overhead costs at your variance report. You know, the actual amount versus what you applied, or the budgeted amount. It's the same process as you did before. And then you're going to break it out. Well, was my overhead costs under or favorable or unfavorable, or was it my activity level? Again, you're still going to have those variables in your estimate, is what they're talking about. And I'm just showing you the multiplication of those processes. Sales variance. And so this is tracked in close detail by all the upper management. Because again, the sales is what drives all the budgets. Everything falls under sales. I always say the two most important people in the company is the guy who manages the top line, which is your salespeople, and the person responsible for the bottom line, your CEO and CFO. So, and the rest is just the middle. Okay, so that is the two extremes. Usually, the largest line on your income statement is sales, right? And so that is tracked very closely, probably on a daily basis. And you're going to have price and volume variance. Again, on your sales, you still have those P and Q components. Are we getting the price that we expected? Are we able to sell, our widget at $10, or are we having to drop that price? Are we selling the same volume? So it still comes down to price and quantity. And then you're just going to break out the variances in different areas. So again, actual hours of activity, variable overhead rate. So it's just the budget versus the actual results is what they're doing. And that difference is called the variance. Same with your fixed overhead variances. And I think that should be about it. I'm not going to break this out. Again, it just comes down to P and Q. And are you estimating both of those correctly? And you're always adjusting. And the fixed overhead cost variance, what will drive this is you usually know what your fixed overhead, your fixed costs are, but the variances can be driven by how much volume did you estimate the right volume to that. Again, this is based on 3,500 actual units, and you came in at 4,000, so it's the volume that's your estimate. So again, spending variance versus volume variance, spending versus efficiency, again, it's P and Q. I'm not going to spend time on that. Again, they're just separating out the price variance and the quantity variance. And I think that should be it for chapter 23, and we'll go ahead and we have 2 more chapters left.